Let's understand the reproductive bodies in the case of flower. So one is the pollen, the other is the ovary, and how the process of fertilization takes place. So let's first begin with pollen. Here is an example of pollen. Now pollen are a unique structure which have two layers, the exine and the intine. Exine is the outer layer. This outer layer is rough, spinous and has what is called as germ pore. Then is the inner layer. The inner layer is known as intine. It is relatively a thin layer. Within the intine lies the cytoplasma. In the cytoplasma, two cells are present. They are called as the generative cell and the tube cell. Tube cell is also known as vegetative cell. So tube cell and the vegetative cell are present within the cytoplasma. Now as the pollen tube starts to begin, these two actually move forward and pollen grow out from the germ pore. The generative and the vegetative nucleus, the cells are formed. The vegetative or the tube cell degenerates, and this generative cell actually makes two male gametes, and these male gametes are used for the process of fertilization. Now, what is the process of fertilization? The first is germination of pollen tubes. Now when there is germination of pollen tube, as you can see here, the pollen tube arises through which the generative cell actually moves, and this generative cell then divides into two male gametes, 1 and 2. The next is the entry of the pollen grains into the embryo sac. So the pollen then moves from the pollen tube to the embryo sac. The two male cells pass through the nucleolus. Okay, that's another important part in the ovary. Okay, they pass through nucleolus and they finally enter into the cell, the ovary. Okay, and this is where the tip of the pollen tube ruptures and the two male gametes actually merge with the egg at the embryo sac. The most important aspect is this process is called as double fertilization and triple fusion. We would understand in a while why it is called so. But to understand another important thing, the third important thing is the fusion of the male and the female gametes take place. So two male gametes move through here. One male gamete fuse with the one female gamete and forms the embryo. This embryo forms the zygote later on. The another male gamete which is present actually moves with the secondary nucleus, and at the secondary nucleus, which is the polar nucleus as it is called as, so the polar cells, it fuses with the polar cells to form the endosperm. So there is two important things that happen. Now in the female section, we move to the ovary. So within the ovary, there is micropyle, which is the opening, hilum, integument, which is the outer layers, nucleolus through which the pollen tube actually moves, and here the rupture of the pollen tube takes place. The two male gametes are released. The uppermost area is known as chalaza. Now this ovule is attached to the placenta inside by funicle, and funicle is the point, or funiculus as it is called as, which helps to develop into seed. So ovary converts into what? The ovary converts into the fruit, and inside the ovary here is the ovule, and this ovule, the structure of the LS of the ovule is given here, and this ovule actually turns out into the seed later on. Now this seed could be endospermic, embryonic seed. If it is an embryonic seed, the endosperm persists. If it is a non-endospermic seed, then the food material would be stored in where? In the cotyledons. Now when there is the formation, this embryo sac has 7 cells. What are those 7 cells? Very, very important. 3 of the cells are known as antipodal cells. 2 of the cells are known as synergid cells. There is 1 egg or oosphere and 2 polar nucleus. So 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1, that gives a total 7 cells. Now, 1 male gamete fuses with the egg here, and this leads to the formation of embryo and finally the formation of zygote. The other male gamete fuses with the 2 polar nuclei, which are called as the secondary nuclei, and helps in the formation of what? Endosperm. As the seed matures, this antipodal cells and the synergids actually disappear. Now, the layers of the ovule are again important. So, ovule converts into seed, as I said. Now, the outer layer or the outer integument is what is known as testa, which we have studied in a separate lecture as well. The inner layer of the ovule is known as tegmen. The fruit is the ovary. The wall of the ovary is what is called as pericarp. True carp is a true fruit, and eucarp is a true fruit, and pseudocarp is a false fruit. And then we have funicle, which is the stalk of the seed, where the seed gets attached. So it is called as the stalk of the seed. Now, as I said, there is formation of the egg. From the egg and the male gamete form the embryo. The embryo forms the zygote due to the process of fertilization. Now, why it is called as double fertilization? So, one fertilization of the egg and the male gamete, the other of the secondary nucleus and the male gamete forming endosperm. So, two fertilizations. And why it is called as triple fusion? It is called as triple fusion because three nuclei are actually interacting, and this fusion is therefore called as triple fusion because three nuclei fuse, two polar nuclei and one male nuclei. So there are three fusion which happen here, and therefore it is called as double fertilization and triple fusion. Very, very important. Now, fruits have an important role. Fruit actually protects the ovule. Till the time it is immature, it would have an unplateable test, repelling chemicals, so that animals don't attract towards the seed. However, as the fruit matures, what would happen? This would turn out to be attracting to the animals. The seeds would then have a capability to burst and spread to longer distances in order to have a better option for pollination, and therefore the topic of pollination and fertilization usually go hand in hand. So very important concept of how the fertilization takes place. What are the various important reproductive organs, which is the pollens and the ovary which is involved, and within the ovary how the formation of embryo sac takes place. So those are some of the important things that we have covered in this lecture. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to post those in the comment section.